Sweet.
All
Okay,
right,
known.
so we've got author James Rosone and Todd Hodges talking to you guys today. So we're going to go through some different questions and get to know our friend Todd a bit more. So how are you doing today?
Pretty good. Getting over a little bug, but feeling better than I have in a while today.
I know, and you're out in Seattle, so you're like in the middle of this whole epicenter thing. So, we're
Yeah.
like calling you from the bunker.
Yeah.
So, yeah, be able to at least give you some outside contact with the world and be able to talk with some people on the other end of the country because you're in Seattle, I'm out in Tampa, Florida, so we could be further apart from each other if we tried right now. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Actually,
so
come to think of it, I don't think I've done anything but text with people for the most part. Maybe called my mother, but other than that, I don't think I've been talking to much of anyone since this started.
I
Just
know, crazy.
actual voices. Yeah.
So now you've been writing, you've written a number of books and you're actually crushing it right now in the audio space, if I understand things right. Now, when did you first start getting into writing? What kind of led you to that impetus to write that first book?
Um, I always liked writing. I don't want to get, you get too pompous or full of yourself, but I had a talent for it in high school. I didn't proceed to follow that because I never thought I could make a career out of it.
Yeah,
So when I went to college, I went into biology because it was something I was interested in. I thought, this is something I can have a career in. But mostly the reason I didn't pursue writing even though I liked it and I was good at it, is just because I didn't want to have to navigate the bureaucracy of finding an agent and then submitting works to a publisher and like getting rejected 60 times. It's like that's my Achilles heel as far as like getting things done. Like if there's a massive amount of like back and forth paperwork in between A and B, that's like I used to tell people like the hardest thing for me about getting a job is just getting into the door to the interview, like submitting the resumes, getting going back and forth and so on and so like. And that's the part I hate. It's not the job itself. It's always just the part of just getting it. Anyway, I got off on a bit of a tangent there, but the point being is I started to get interested in writing again when I was about 2011. I was about 32-ish. I was just, I hated my corporate jobs. I've had 3 in a row, and they were all the same in some way or another. And I was just looking for some way. Like I hated coming to work every day so much that I was looking for some way to escape. And so writing almost became like the escape plan because I was looking for a Hail Mary. I did have an idea in my head for a novel for about 6 years before that, and a friend of mine sat down with me at lunch because I was thinking about doing something extreme to change my life, like join the military or the National Guard is what I think I had in mind. And he was just like, "Don't do it, Todd. Don't do it." And he started telling me about like Kindle and stuff like that, which kind of opened my eyes to the possibility that all of that bureaucracy or paperwork stuff that I was talking to you, getting an agent, all that was kind of something I might not have to go through. And as long as I was willing to market myself or figure that part out, that it could be something that I could actually do for a living. So I gave it a shot, published a novel. Things didn't go well immediately, but I figured it out after about 6 months of how to get the advertising done right. I made like every single mistake that's out there to make. I hired the wrong editor at first. Or I thought I had a finished book when I didn't. And I made my own cover, and so on and so forth. Like every single mistake that's out there to make, I made it first. But back then, I still had a day job that was paying pretty well, so it was just supporting this hobby thing that might turn into a career. So I was okay to do that, and I could play around. Eventually, I hit on a formula that worked, and I started selling enough books, and eventually, I was actually selling more books than the royalties were making more than my job.
yep.
So it became a point of like, okay, well, it's taking me forever to write the sequel to this book because I have a job. So maybe if this is what's making more money, it's time to take the plunge.
Make the switch. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's something that we all end up making mistakes on too. When we first get into this business is the covers. We think, oh, this cover's great. But the reality is this cover is atrocious. And had we a group of friends that could give us some unbiased, opinions and tell us, well, this works with your genre or no, that does not work. we all probably would have done a little better when we first started out. I know that would have been my case for sure. But I like how you pursued your passion despite the fact that you had a full-time job and you didn't give up on it. A friend of yours pointed out that you could do Kindle and bypass everything, because that's what happened with me. Was I was researching around and I found out that I could publish my own book through Amazon. I was like, wow, let me do this, because the last publisher I went through was terrible. I made the mistake of publishing my first book through a company called Tate Publishing out of Oklahoma, and they ended up being just a terrible, shyster of a company. And I got discouraged with it. I didn't write anything more. And for me, the biggest drawback for me writing or going into writing and doing anything, honestly, was my English grammar skills, my ability to do all of that. I was just atrocious. And despite being in college, I wasn't an English major. I was a business major and a poli-sci major, and I understood business and politics, and understood how to do that. But I was terrible at writing. And grammar check, obviously helps a lot. And then it dawned on me, I don't have to be good at grammar and spelling to be a writer. I just need to have a good editor and who can understand what it is I'm trying to convey and help me put it in the better sentence structure. And that just revolutionized and changed everything for me. So it's like, wait a second, I can tell these phenomenal stories, and now I can hire someone who can fix my poor grammar. And this doesn't have to be an impediment to me fulfilling what I want to do, which is write books.
Right.
So yeah, it's interesting.
It's I always tell people that are interested they have the same same things holding them back as what you're describing. Is like, I'm just going to level with you right now. I don't know the difference between affect and effect. Like, I don't know. My wife knows. Yeah. She does the proofreading before we send it off. Like, she does it before we even send it to an editor. Yep. My wife goes through and makes sure that like all of my then and thens and my affects and effects are correct, because I just when I'm writing, especially, like, it doesn't cross my head that it just doesn't go through my head that those are even different words. They just,
I know. Same.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the same way. My wife does the exact same thing. She does all of our first editings, make sure the characters are all done up really nice, that they flow well, the scenes flow, the characters flow, the plot of the book is good. And then over the years, because we've had 18 books edited through the same editor, so at this point we have a really good like FAQ or cheat sheet from her that we've developed. So we do a lot of control finds of things that are typical mistakes, and we fix them. So when she gets the book, she's actually getting a really good, clean copy. And we can get a 600-page book, 120,000 word book back sometimes in like 5-7 days, because it's fairly decent. And then the changes she recommends are legitimately really good changes, because she didn't have to spend so much time fixing stupid stuff.
Yeah. My wife and I. Oh, yeah. To say, my wife and I pretty much have the same process. She has a list of all of my usual failures as a writer, and then she just does a search before she begins, just like you were saying. I always find I don't know if you have this issue with my wife. Me and my wife have this issue. It's like, I'm always telling her, don't tell me what you think of it, or don't tell me what thing you thought was funny in the editing that you found, because I'm not gonna find it funny. Like, I don't know how to describe this, but we all, like, the biggest arguments we've ever had in this marriage are probably about book editing. And it's like, just don't tell me whatever you found. Just correct it. I don't want to get in an argument over it, but it's just a funny thing.
We established that rule around, I think it was around book 5 or 6.
Yeah.
It solved a lot of problems. A lot of problems.
Yeah.
Yeah. So prior to being writing, what was your first job out of college? What would you work in? What'd you do?
Okay, so I didn't go to college right away. I moved up here to Washington when I was 19 from California. So my first major job was a computer repair tech for Apple. Not for Apple. It was a company called the Mac Store that was in the Washington area, and around 2000, it was the only Apple repair technicians it was really the only game in town as far as repairing Mac computers went. So I did that for about 6 years. And I only quit that job. I had gone down to part-time when I was in college because of calculus. Calculus was killing me.
Yeah.
I needed to pass calculus. I was spending 4 hours a day in a math lab. I could not even do a part-time job and do calculus with all my other course load at the same time. So I had to quit. And luckily, student loans and so on and so forth. But I was already about 2 years into my I'd been at junior college for about 2 years. I was almost done with that. I was about to transfer to the UW. So that's when I quit that job. Now, my first job right out of college, so I just got a degree in molecular, cellular, and developmental biology, which sounds really fancy, but it's just a biology degree, really.
Okay.
And my first job out of college was a gym. I worked at a gym for a year, like with personal trainers and selling gym memberships. After that, I got a job working for a place that did animal testing. So I actually was using my degree. So I got into science. And for about, it was right when the recession hit. So like, I would say that I didn't really care for that job, but I was stuck. I had a good job and I couldn't leave it because the economy was terrible at the time. So I spent a lot of time doing drug testing. And I was the guy that basically would formulate the test drugs that were coming in. Is this making sense so far, or am I losing it?
Yeah. No, I follow me.
So we were doing test drugs on like monkeys and mice and I think some a few years, but I think there was actually a dog program for a while there. Anyway, didn't like it. Eventually got out of that, and I went to work for a chemical distributor, like a specialty chemical distributor. So I was doing again, they hired me because I had a degree in biology, which gave me some chemistry background.
Yeah.
But mostly what I did there was international shipping and so on and so forth. And that's actually when I wrote The Never Hero, because I was starting to feel trapped. I felt like no matter what I did, I was going to be commuting for an hour and a half to work and back, losing 10 hours of my life every day to a job. I just gotten married and gotten a house, and I started to write because I just didn't feel like there was anywhere to go in that company and no other company I really wanted to go to.
Yeah.
So I wrote. The book started to do really well, and this is the funny thing is, I got a new job at Seattle Genetics. It was right when the book started to really take off. So
Okay.
I like to think that there's kind of a rule or an agreement that when you get a new job you stay for at least a year before you
Yeah.
leave.
Yeah. I
Especially.
agree with you. I agree.
So that's what I ended up doing. Is like the book started doing really well. Immediately as I got there, I was like, I should be leaving, but I stayed there for a year. And then I quit like on the day of, and started getting to a full-time work on the sequel. But it's funny. You think you're going to have all this amount of time, but my wife and I decided to have kids right around that period too. So it was just like swapping one time suck for another that was in the way, and here we are today. I have two
Yeah.
newborns that get very difficult to get anything done. So.
I know the feeling. I have 3 kids under 7, all trapped here. They're all in the other room over there doing their best to be quiet, so you may hear them every now and then. But I've got a 7-month-old. Well, she turned 7 months on Wednesday the 1st. Then we've got a soon-to-be 5-year-old and then a 7-year-old. And their schedules are all upended right now, so naturally they're all in a tizzy and trying to figure things out. And mom and dad are pulling our hair out because we're like, we used to have 7 hours a day to write and work, and now we don't have that at all. And so we're trying to balance it around. It's a little bit of a challenge, but we're getting through it.
Yeah, I think I might have mentioned this. We chat. I don't know if people watching this, but we chat before. And like my greatest problem with children as a challenge is that I get writing done by having a very structured day.
Yeah.
And the one thing that they will not seem to allow is for me to have a structured day where like I can plan where I'm going to be and what I'm going to be doing and like when I'm going to be sitting down. Because I know personally that my best hours for writing are between 11 and 3 p.m. Before
Okay.
that, it's weird. It doesn't seem to have anything to do with my sleeping patterns either. Like if I change up my sleeping patterns, I still want to sit down at the computer and start writing around 11. And around 3 o'clock, that's when I get to the point of diminishing returns where like the work that I'm producing is maybe not even worth the time I'm spending sitting because I'm not that into it anymore. And that's maybe specific to me, but getting that window each day is the hardest challenge with children that I never imagined it would be that hard to get that window, but it really is. anyway.
Yeah, my routine was getting up at 6. Well, the kids wake us up at 6, and get them out the door at 7. Drop my daughter off. Drop my son off at his. We have him in a Montessori school for pre-K. So we drop him off and then come back home. I'd be home by about 7:45ish. Get my shower, eat a little food, get my routine, then start work at 8:30, 9 o'clock, and good to go until 2 o'clock to pick up my daughter, and then pick up my son afterwards, and try to get a little bit of time in there, then break for dinner and evening stuff, and then pick back up again after 8 o'clock. It's challenging, but that's part of the problem with the writing and self-publishing is there's that cliff, there's that 90-day cliff that everyone talks about, and you either have this massive audience where you can kind of ride this large wave when you release a book, and you can ride that wave for many, many months before the next one, or you have a smaller audience and you've got to release books faster and faster in order to stay on that wave. So my goal has been to expand my audience as quickly as I can and as diversely as I can globally, so that way I can ride that wave longer and not have these big drop-offs where you're doing phenomenal, and then 30 to 45 days rolls around, and then you're like, oh my God, in the last 45 days you're freaking out. So I've been doing my best to stretch that out. I'm not quite to having it fully stretched out, but I'm better now than I was, say, 2 years ago. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But it's a brutal schedule trying to stay on a 90-day release, window where it's just a book coming out every 90 days, because it's, there's the time to sit and write, there's the editing process, there's going through the beta readers, and getting that done. And, fortunately, my wife's my partner in crime on this, and so she's able to, I write the book, I hand it off to her, she handles the next steps, and then I write the second book. I finish that, and I put it in the queue, and I write the third book, and I put it in the queue. And she steadily gets caught up and makes sure that we're in that 90-day window. Every time we sometimes we get really close, but we'll make it. We've been down to the last few hours before we had to upload, but we always seem to make it.
Yeah. Well, I think I told you before, like that's not how I really work. I mean, I couldn't actually. I don't think I could produce a book every 90 days.
Not your style book. Now yours is way more. Yours is really sciencey and pretty techy and tough.
Yeah. Well, that's. I think I've told you before. Also, is like the first thing I'm getting as soon as I finish this series, because I'm almost done with this series, and I've learned so many lessons about the type of story, like why people don't try to write these types of stories. But yeah, I think that's the double-edged coin here. Like I kind of get why the book is done so well, because it is a different type of story. But the reason that other authors maybe never go down this road is because, I mean, I've been 3 years with each book. Yeah, and it's just been a very different. I had an idea last night for how to improve the book's structure and style, that if I had tried to like get this all done in 90 days, like it just wouldn't have been there, like it would have just been whatever I'd gotten done before then. And I'm not saying it's like it's a better or worse. I'm just saying, like, I won't release a book until I feel really good about it, and I wouldn't have felt really good about it without those kind of ideas coming in.
You're going to find that you get faster the more you do this. I mean, it was hard for us to hit that window when we first started out. And the first 4 books we wrote, we weren't on a 90-day cycle. It was more like about 6 to 9 months. It's only been probably the last 8 books we've written that we've kind of maintained that window, so to speak. But when we do that, from the time I actually write the book and finish it to the time it actually finishes editing, my wife, the beta readers, and gets published, it's not actually 90 days. It really is probably more like around 8 months. It's just we have so many of them done in a pipeline that there's one coming out every 90 days at this point. But that literally took about 2 years of just grinding to build that pipeline up and keep that pipeline going. So it doesn't quite, it's not, a lot of people hear 90 days, they're like, oh, you wrote the whole, it's not quite like that. It does come out that way, but it's not quite that way.
I wasn't actually trying to come down on that methodology, because that's the complete plan for the next series.
Yeah,
like
it's great. It's just hard. Grind.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I think I told you before, next series I want to do almost a pure fantasy series. There's no I mean, there's a little bit of research that goes into that kind of a project, but not nearly as much as when you want to have like a science fiction book that's actually kind of based on real science, at least most of the time.
Yep.
Like that makes it so much more complicated. And I just can't wait to write, a series that has magic in it where I can just be like, because I made the rules and that's how they work.
What's I do with sci-fi?
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway.
I'm taking a break right now and doing a military sci-fi series, so it's a break from my normal thrillers I tend to write, because those are so heavily researched and very time-consuming to do that. And I just wanted to take a break and write sci-fi, because I personally read a lot of sci-fi. I like sci-fi. I usually read outside of my genre that I write in, believe it or not. And so for me, it's been great, because there is research in sci-fi, but it's different type of research. It's not the technical stuff. When you're writing a tank battle that's taking place in Poland or in Ukraine, you've got to first understand not just the American tanks and equipment. You got to understand what the Poles and the Ukrainians are using, and what are the Russians using, and what is the capabilities of all these different weapon systems, and the air units, the ground units. I mean, there's a lot of equipment you actually have to really research and know well to put in there to make sure that it's accurate and real. In sci-fi, you don't have quite that granularity of detail you have to do. It's, you kind of make up the rules on how your faster than light travel works. You don't have to actually sit right out the scientific code for how you did it. You're not inventing. So it's a lot more fun, to be honest with you. It's just the story flows much faster. It's going much quicker. I'm knocking out these books, honestly, a lot faster than I did my other ones, because it doesn't have to have that ingrained level of research. But I will go back to writing what I'm known for, my military thrillers. I just want to take a short deviated break for a little while to do this other series. And if it ends up taking off and doing exceptionally well, then maybe I take a longer break and I continue that series out for 9 books or 12 books before I go back and do some of the other military thrillers I'm known for.
Yeah.
So be challenging.
Yeah. The one difference is, and I'm not like arguing with you. It sounds like I am, but I'm not. I write kind of like a contemporary science fiction.
Yes.
So it's not really like space travel type stuff. When I say I have to do
like that parallel dimensions and time travel type stuff, right? Yeah.
Yeah, there's some of that going on. That's the stuff that most of the time I just do pretty much write it as though it's magic though. It's like alien technology so advanced that humans aren't going to get their head wrapped around it, but it works. It's the other stuff like there's a lot of things about evolution and human biology. So that's where my expertise comes in, but it still requires a lot of research. Yeah. So like, I don't know if I need to go into details and plot details, but those are the things that slow me down a lot. And I remember my worst, this is an anecdote, but my worst moment as an author where I just kind of gave up on research and made my best guess as to how something worked was the GPS systems in the world. I searched because I needed the GPS satellite systems to work for something to do with my second book.
Okay.
But the specific data that I was trying to find, I couldn't find it in any documentaries. I couldn't find it in any technical documents. I couldn't find anyone that worked that I knew, or that worked with like GPS systems to answer any of these questions, and they were very specific. So eventually, when I tried for a couple of days to get at the problem, I just made it up. I just was like, this is how I imagine the system works.
Sure.
So far, I've gotten one email from a guy going like, yeah, that's not how it works. and he wrote me a big long email. Just, I can't go back and edit it now, but he's like the only guy that caught it because he was a reader that did work with the GPS system. He's like,
what you do? You say, that is a great email. Can I please add you to my technical team? So when I have more technical questions, I can ask you. I do that to people all the time. I think I got about 90 of them on my Rolodex at this point. So I think of for all kinds of questions because things like that. Because people they'll email you about, it doesn't really work that way. It's like, you're right. How about you join my team and help me out with this? And they almost always say yes because they love being able to get involved in that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I love readers that are willing to help like that. It's just it's so great to work with them. Yeah. And just to make a better book, better product.
Yep. Anyway. So if NINC is still going on this year, are we going to see you back at NINC this year?
really depends. Like, I
Maybe
have
you
to
want to
get.
go back to a Florida vacation, man.
Yeah, it's rough. It's like I end up getting laced with so much guilt whenever I do it because like I'm leaving my wife with 3 children, 2 dogs, and 3 cats, and that's just like a lot to leave on one adult.
It is.
So like I perpetually feel like uh like she's doing more, she's putting more effort into the marriage than I am. Like when I go for those sorts of things, but mostly I just if I don't finish this book, but by then I really need to be doing nothing else because like the income you make from the first 2 books that lasts a certain amount of time. But if you aren't, eventually cranking a book out, then you're going to start to get into financial trouble.
Yep.
So by then, I imagine if I don't have this book out, I'll be like, it's getting kind of tight around here,
Well, you could bring her and the kids. Just make a vacation out of it.
Yeah, then you're paying like plane tickets for. Then it's a far more expensive vacation than if it's one person. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's true. I live local, so for me, I just drive over. I am planning on having well, my wife's going to come. She'll come during the day for a few times because we'll get a sitter to watch the kids. And then she's going to bring the kids and be there over the weekend, so we can still do that. And that'll be kind of nice and fun for them. And, I can still attend the conference. Don't feel too bad. Yeah.
I went to NINC for the first time this year. Like that's when we met, of course.
Yeah, my first time too.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed it. I don't know if I'll go this year though. It's too far out and too hard to plan. Not for me.
I know. There's another conference I'm supposed to go to the week before up in Connecticut, and I don't know if it's going to still go on or not. I haven't really heard a whole lot from them yet on that. It was the Military Writers Association of America has a conference up there. Well, they rotate it every year. Last year was in New Mexico, and this year it's in Connecticut. So I'm not sure they're going to have that. I'm not sure even NINC's going to be around because I'm getting the feeling that, this bug is going to go in waves where we're going to do this social distancing and kind of quarantine. It's going to come down a little bit, but then when we release everyone back out, we'll see a bit of a resurgence again. And then the big challenge is, does this act like other, viruses where it comes back in the fall again? Because the flu is a cyclical thing. We see it every year from a certain month to another certain month every single year. And we don't know if this is going to be somewhat similar to that in the same pattern. And God help us if it is, because it's going to be in waves. It's like we can't shut down forever.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how we're going to challenge that because it's sad because I'm seeing a lot of writer conferences being canceled. A lot of people I know are pretty disappointed because it's just one cancellation after another. And we're trying to figure out and plan, do we go, do we not go? Do we make reservations? Do we buy plane tickets? And it's a lot of uncertainty on how our schedules are going to shake out, I guess.
Yeah, I honestly hadn't even considered how the plague, I don't know what we should call that, is worked into that as far as scheduling in September. But yeah, you're right. It's a good point.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see how it all shakes out and works like that,
Yeah.
Yeah, so your next series, you're planning on starting that this summer then, basically? Is that when you're starting it?
I've already kind of, so I think I've told you before, I'm finding it very difficult to finish this first trilogy. I'm still working on it every day, but I basically keep the other series up in the background.
Sure.
In case there's any, so I'm kind of already working on it. I don't let myself spend hours on it, like writing actual chapters. I just jot down notes and ideas in the background. Yeah, I mean, the idea would be to begin as soon as I finish the third book for the finale of the trilogy. And then, of course, my wife has kind of been wanting to write a series now too.
Yeah.
So we run into this thing where it's like, well, you've been supporting me for very long. On the other hand, I have an audience, so it's an easier thing for me to write a book and be pretty sure it's gonna at least have some readership right out of the gate, whereas my wife wants to write an urban fantasy book. And I'm excited because I've been helping her with it. And so in a way, I read urban fantasy and I read and like sword and sorcery type of fantasy.
Sure.
You were talking earlier about how you don't write what you really read.
I know.
So like I ended up writing contemporary sci-fi, but that's generally what I read is like urban fantasy and sword and sorcery. And that's why I kind of am really looking forward to making the switch over myself. Anyhow, my wife's writing an urban fantasy book. I've really had a lot of fun helping her write that book because, again, it's not so much research, it's just creativity. You know, like you build the systems of how your magic system works, and then you just have to play within that world that you've built. But it's still, if you want to bend the rules, you can come up with a reason that doesn't necessarily have to obey science. Yeah. I've had a lot of fun helping her. She does. There might be a period in between, like where we finish this trilogy, where I'm helping her a little bit, depending on how much she wants to sit down and write and work on her own series. But I do plan on getting right into it. And that was a really long way to get to that last sentence there.
Well, the other thing you could do too, though, is like what my wife and I have done, because she's as much involved in this as I am. So we have her listed as a co-author on it. And it kind of helps build up her author name and her author brand as well. So when she goes to branch off to do some stuff herself, she's got a little bit of that to her credit, so to speak. But yeah, I totally get it, because my wife wants to write romance novels. She wants to write contemporary romance novels, and right now she writes thrillers. So, couldn't be more opposite if we tried.
Yeah.
But at some point we hope to be able to get to a position where she's able to write her books and I'm able to do mine and be somewhat independent and separate like that. But I foresee that it's unfortunately taking some time, because we have 3 little kids, and it's a matter of focusing on them and their education, and then doing what is making the money and paying the bills right now, which is our stuff we're kind of known for.
Yeah,
so it's that
same predicament.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Same predicaments. Predicaments. So when you're trapped indoors in the bunker like that right now, are you guys still able to make heavy use of carry out foods or Uber Eats and delivery services, things like that, or is that shut down too?
We haven't tried. This is a weird, unique instance because I hate coming off like tooting my own horn, because that's not what I want to do here. But I've never really panicked or thought it was going to be a big deal before when there's been an outbreak or something like that. But coronavirus started scaring me. And honestly, the only difference really is probably that I had 2 young children. Yeah. So that made me, when I was in my 20s, I didn't investigate SARS as much as I did with the coronavirus. But I started getting worried about CV-19 really early. So I was already like kind of going, I really need to just go stock up just in case,
smart.
I was just going to buy a bunch of stuff that we would eventually use anyway, so like I didn't go hoard toilet paper, but I did buy an extra pack. Just like all stuff like lentils and stuff. We have a huge storehouse of that kind of stuff. So I wasn't like panic buying, because I knew it was all stuff that we would eventually use. Yeah. But I did go and do that, and the very next day, the first person died in the U.S. of it, and then the panic started, and so we haven't had to leave the house much, only for things that actually go bad. Like we drink a lot of milk in this house. Yeah. Like we have a 19-year-old, my wife, me, and the 2 kids, the 2 babies. So Xander's 3 and Lorelai's a little under 2. We go through like a gallon of milk a day, basically. So other than stuff like that, we don't really have to go to the mainland, actually go out of the house and get stuff. So we've been pretty good. We haven't even ordered a pizza yet. I'm still looking forward to trying that out and see how it goes.
You should order some stuff. Support your local businesses. Use some Uber Eats.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like not supporting them is how I look at it. It's just it hasn't come up. We seldom did that in the first place beforehand. We didn't eat out very much. So I live in a suburban area. There isn't a lot of stuff around here anyway. I'm like technically still in Seattle, but just barely. Like on the outskirts of it. So.
And are you on the north side or the south side or the west side of Seattle?
Technically, I'm the west side, but again, like barely though. Like I think like another mile, and you would have to start calling it something else when you wrote your address on an envelope, for instance. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not quite Tampa. I mean, I'm in Hillsborough County, same county as Tampa, but I'm east of 75. So anything west of 75 is Tampa proper, and anything
Mm.
east breaks down into a couple of small cities. It's weird because like the city I live in has got 250,000 people in it, but we're not an incorporated city. You know, we don't have our own police department, our own fire department. We have the county fire department. We have the county, sheriff. It's huge, and but it's like that, and it's weird because between in Hillsborough County, if you separate out like all the small cities between like Apollo Beach and Brandon and Riverview and Valrico, that entire area is close to 1 million to 1.25 million people. It's not a small chunk of people, and none of them are incorporated. They're not actual towns. We're all part of the county, which is kind of weird how it's broken down like that. It's just, but our area is just ballooned up. I mean, I moved here in '04 and we were nothing like that. Our population's doubled probably in the last 10 years, 12 years, because of all the people moving down from up north, down here to Florida. I mean, we have just right around 21 million people living in the state at this point, which is really crazy to think about, the fact that we have 21 million people living here. They call it God's waiting room. We've
They do?
probably
They call it what? Oh, I guess that makes sense.
well, because our population traditionally was about maybe 1/4 to 1/5, retirees and elderly. I think it's not as bad as that anymore. It is widened out as more people have decided. Florida's pretty nice down here, 2,000 miles of beaches and, no state income tax, but, it's interesting. It's really ballooned up a lot. And unfortunately, our infrastructure has not kept up with this explosion in population, which, means we have a lot of people traveling on roads that weren't designed for this many people.
No, I know all about that in Seattle. We've really had trouble keeping up with the influx of people coming into the city, especially for, like Amazon, Microsoft, Google. So many companies in Boeing are all based here. There's so many job opportunities that I remember just not having this much trouble with traffic, like back in 2006. And then you get to like now and you're just like, whether or not it takes 15 minutes or 2 hours to get to the film location is completely dependent on like the time of day, and I'm pretty sure that's nothing new for anyone anywhere, but I get what you mean is all I'm saying.
So with your third book that you're plugging away on, do you have an ETA for your readers on when this thing might possibly be done, like maybe a 90-day window?
Here's where I'm at. I have a rough draft that I don't like. That's pretty much a complete story, but not quite. Like if you were to actually sit down and read it as it is right now, you'd get what I was going for, but it wouldn't quite make sense because I've changed elements of the story throughout. Like I've been like, oh no, this chapter here isn't going to work. I'm going to have to move it. And part of the real problem I'm having, and maybe this is a much longer answer than you wanted. Maybe you just wanted to. I'm trying to tell a story a way that I've never tried to tell before, and that's I don't really love to do a lot of flashbacks in a story, but I am going to tell this one in a non-linear fashion.
Sure.
Especially for one of the characters. So the main character is going to have a lot of the funny thing is I don't want to exactly call them flashbacks because they're almost all flashbacks to the same period of time. So there's like this window of 2 months for the main character that kind of only I know no one's read the series. People who have read the series are going to understand this next sentence, and the people who haven't aren't going to understand it. But the main character is going to exist in a temporary dimension for about 3 months by himself. And what happens inside that temporary dimension is going to have a lot of the secrets of the book, the big reveals of the book. Why does this character know things that he shouldn't know? Type questions. But you don't want to just tell that all at the beginning when it happens to him. I want to spread it out so that, and there's good reasons for why he's not telling people. He's kind of like locked into a situation. But I'm having so much trouble figuring out how to structure that. Because every single time you want to do a flashback, you're going to have a good reason to go into it. And you have to have a good reason why you didn't tell people everything that you told them before. Yeah. And so like I was saying the other day, or just a few minutes ago, was like, I had an idea last night that fixed the problem for me. It's like I'm still finding the solutions to these structure problems throughout the novel. So in the end, yes, if you were to read it right now, you'd probably get what I was going for, and it would be a completed book. But I don't really like it yet, so I'm still working really hard on it. And to be honest, I feel like I get through maybe 2 paragraphs a day whenever I get the opportunity to write right now. Like that's what it feels like with the editing. And that's a struggle, but I'm not ever, you never fail as long as you never give up.
That's
so
right. That's right.
yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway.
you just gotta keep with it, man. Keep with it. Well, you're doing great though. I mean, you're crushing it in the audio space. You're doing great with the books. You're writing a very technical and challenging genre in book. You're far more than most authors. So I think the readers have rewarded you pretty well with that. And you've got a great following for as new to the business as you are, and with the number of books you've got out, you've done incredibly well compared to a lot of other folks. So
Yeah, I feel very lucky.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead, though.
No, it's okay, man. I'm really excited for you. This is really, really quite great. So, well, I don't want to keep you too much longer, and I can hear my little munchkins are getting ready for dinner, so I can't keep them quiet much longer. So we'll go ahead and end our chat here, but we'll look forward to talking with you again, and hopefully your readers will be ready and rearing for book 3.
All right. Well, thank you for talking to me. I guess we'll see you later then.
Sounds good, man. We'll talk to you later. All right.